The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
All systems are a go.
Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your seats. Taking Care of Iredell with North Carolina State Representative Jeff McNeely is about to begin. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, Iredell County. Hope everybody's doing well. If I sound like I'm a little stopped up, I think I've sucked up most of the pollen for y'all. So I am working hard for the constituents in my district, trying to get rid of that, but putting it all in my head. So hopefully we'll work through this. Hey, got a great show today. Representative Jake Johnson's coming on. Jake's my seatmate, but he's also the chair on our IT, so Information Technology Committee, and we're going to talk broadband and in our rural parts and even Iredell and whatnot. So it should be an interesting show how we're trying to move this forward. It's slow, but we're getting there, folks. We are getting there. Hey, if anybody would like to give us a holler, call in 844-788-3464. That's 844-788-3464. Well, just jump right in here. Early voting has already started for the runoff from the primary. I think on the ballot here in Iredell County, you'll just have lieutenant governor and auditor, I'm pretty sure, but it's already going on, and it will go through May the 12th, and then the election day is May the 14th. And these are both two very important decisions. The lieutenant governor sits on the state school board and also on the state community college board. So, and the auditor is the one that watches after our money. And we just had a statewide audit, and we saw where we misspent some of the different departments misspent money from the federal government. So we've got to fix our problem. So both of these are very important. Then we need to make sure we get out and vote and be heard, and make sure the right person ends up coming on the ballot in November. Really important. And speaking of coming on the ballot in November, Planned Parenthood, they're the people that we mostly know for giving abortions and trying to make sure to make it as easy as possible, is going to spend $10 million on a campaign basically against Mark Robinson and a assorted dozen or so legislators in the state of North Carolina to try their best to either take away the supermajority we have or flip it back blue even. Now, I think the part that really bothers me in this, folks, and let me see if I can pull this up, and it's always like this when you really need your phone to work like you want, but Planned Parenthood Federation of America affiliates received about $148 million in HHS grants or cooperative agreements. These are federal government grants. They also received $1.54 billion, that's a B, in Medicare, Medicaid, and CHIP payments. Planned Parenthood affiliates also received 44 Paycheck Protection Program loans back during COVID that totaled approximately $89 million. Wow, 44 programs got $89 million. The entire amount, including accrued interest, was forgiven. So I don't know, you maybe do the math and add all this up, but I'm seeing about $1.7 billion of tax money that goes to them so that they can come back and form a PAC and spend $10 million. And, you know, it says they're, according to their, according to the representatives for Planned Parenthood votes and Planned Parenthood Action, PAC, that's the Political Action Committee, North Carolina, attempts to end the GOP supermajority because we enacted limits on abortion last year from 20 to 12. Hallelujah. Amen. This is going to be one of the biggest amounts they've ever spent in North Carolina. Our goal is clear, says the lady here, to protect abortion access in North Carolina. We must ensure voters know abortion is on the ballot this year. Well, you won't find it printed out, so I guess that's why they're up to all this. But also goes down here to say Democrat Attorney General Josh Stein, who is also running for governor and is a strong abortion rights supporter. Y'all hear that, folks? Josh Stein, strong abortion rights supporter, wants more abortions. And his allies have said that comments from Mark Robinson show he wants a complete abortion ban. Now, I had Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson on my show, probably about 6 months ago. And guess what? They made an ad out of it. So me and Mark are sitting here in the studio, and they put it on it. And then it was Mark saying basically, and they tried to take as much out of context as they could, but not exactly. Mark said if it was up to him, he would ban all abortion. And you know what? I'm with him. But I understand there are some instances and circumstances. But this is not birth control. This is not what this is about. In Planned Parenthood eyes, it is birth control. So they're after us, They're going to spend here, actually 16 races. And they actually sort of pick on my friend who really made all this possible. And that's Representative Tricia Cotham down in Mecklenburg, South Meck. And because she decided that she had enough, and she come over to the Republican Party, and she strongly voted with us, and I praise her for that. And folks, they're going to come after her with everything they got. I think it's called the Friends of Tricia Cotham, but I'm sure you can Google Trish and find her on the web. And if you would, support her. I don't care if it ain't $5, $10, $20, whatever you can. Make sure, because she put herself out there for more than all the rest, in my opinion, and took all the slings and arrows that they could throw at her. So it was pretty ugly. Still is. She has death threats on her family continuously, her children. It's bad. So pray for her, but also support her in any way you can. Without her, we would not been able to go from 20 to 12 weeks. And by going to that from 20 to 12 weeks, the statistics and what we've seen so far, just with the numbers, about 12,000 plus babies have been saved. Amen. Amen. That's wonderful. That is so wonderful. So just know that they are coming after a lot of us. And I tell you what, if they want to spend a bunch of money on me and Iredell, that's just fine, because I know what I'm voting and I know where I'm going on this. During the meeting last week that they had at the UNC Board of Governors Committee for Governance, unanimously voted to repeal its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies for the entire UNC system. Y'all, this is really big in my opinion, because what this has done is it's taken the woke out of our administrations in our universities, and hopefully it will maybe take some of the woke that's going on with the way that the kids are being indoctrinated in a lot of the classes. So this has put things back on what we call an even keel, where it lets people make decisions on their own. We are not for any kind of discrimination. We are not for any kind of exclusion. That's not it. Their policies, DEI, and it's not Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, their policies are usually woke as can be and completely irrational and crazy at best. Some of the policies that they chose and have done, all this renaming, all these other things that are going on, that's not the problem. So this is a big thing. If you ask me, it's a big step. It still has to go to the full board and be voted on. But it was a unanimous decision that we have gone the wrong way from this governance board that is a sub-board on the state board of the university's system. So I think this is a big move. I think this is a wonderful thing to hear. Maybe we're finally making sense. Stay tuned. Got to pay some bills. Be right back. Give us a call.
Keep it right here. Taking Care of Iredell with NC Representative Jeff McNeely will return after this short break. Call now to speak with NC Representative Jeff McNeely at 844 Studio 4. It's Taking Care of Iredell on 1059 100.7 WSIC.
All right, back here for kind of the first part of the middle of the show. Something I got to always get my fractions right in this here, but we got a little bit before we get to Jake Johnson at the break of the show here at the halfway point, talking about a lot of things, and I mentioned him already. I mentioned Josh Stein already. This might be what people may think is my hate show. I don't know. I'm not hating on people. I'm just telling cold hard facts, folks. And like I said, if you want to call in, 844-788-3464. Love to hear from you on some of this. So, speaking of Josh Stein, who's, a big proponent of abortion, also, after almost 8 years on the job as the Attorney General, Josh Stein's Department of Justice finally has the rape test kit backlog supposedly under control. It peaked at over 16,000 units or kits backed up in 2019, only after the General Assembly poured $15 million more into the problem did it start to turn around, and that was 5 years ago. Victims are finally getting justice after decades of delays. Remember, people, this started under the previous Attorney General, Roy Cooper. So, and then now Stein. If you don't want more incompetence, vote red, vote Robinson. I mean, let's talk about this some. And Josh has made a lot of statements here lately. He actually come out with this great plan about 8 or 9 months ago of what when he gets to be governor, he's going to do far as justice and crime. Well, he's been the top law enforcement person in the state for the last almost 8 years. Why did we wait 7 years on your watch for you to finally tell us what you're going to do about justice? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to anybody. He's just a career politician that just wants your vote, and he's not going to give you anything in return except trouble, problems, and heartaches and headaches. Just have a real serious problem with all this. But finally, people are at least getting justice. We'll see how long this lasts, where we probably get another backlog. So one other important thing, too, that's going on that I don't think a lot of people realize or know about. The Biden administration has basically shut down all new oil, gas, and mineral leases on 13 million acres of federal land in Alaska. But now here's the beauty of it. It's in the Alaska National Petroleum Reserve, these 13 million acres. Congress expressly set aside this region in 1923 for oil and gas development. But the Biden administration is ignoring this and saying drilling would disturb the Arctic's natural wonders. Yet energy development and environmental protection aren't mutually exclusive. It says here President Biden issued a statement saying he is honoring the culture, history, and enduring wisdom of Alaskan natives, which is totally false because right now it says his restrictions are opposed by most all of the local indigenous leaders because they realize it brings jobs and it will be great for America instead of us depending on foreign. This was set aside for this purpose. These acres were set aside in 1923. And it just goes on. So they basically have also denied a permit for the 211-mile road that would be necessary to open up more of this. It's crazy, folks. It's crazy what we're doing. And, I mean, it goes on. Even Dan Sullivan, the senator from Alaska, quips that the Biden administration has imposed more sanctions on Alaska than he has on Iran. And I'm not sure he's not right. So, I'm not even really sure where to go with this. Even some of the Democrats are hollering that this is not going to work for them also. So, talks here, Alaska has a wealth of natural resources, as Representative Mary Sadler Petrola, resources, and can be responsibly developed to help boost domestic manufacturing. Even his own people, he's not listening to. And all this punishment for Alaska comes as the administration eases sanctions on Venezuela oil production, fails to enforce oil sanctions on Iran. Meantime, the Russians and Chinese are increasing investment in Arctic oil, gas, and mineral development. If Alaska were a dictatorship hostile to the U.S. interest, it would get better treatment. Alas, it is merely a U.S. state that doesn't vote for Joe Biden. And that may be very, very true, that last telling statement. He's already backed down on the menthol cigarette ban because it looked like in the polls it was hurting him with black people. So this is a really strong backbone administration we have here. This is all about getting elected again, and Lord knows what he'll do if there's no term limits to term him out. But one thing I do know that's going on is the critical minerals that are in this that we need to do all of his climate control programs and all these batteries and everything like that. They're in Alaska. We don't have to get them from China, but we are, and that's a real problem. Last year, amid escalating tensions, China cut off the export to the U.S. on gallium, which is a critical computer chip maker, and supposedly this Alaskan petroleum reserve area is really rich in that. So we're going to be held hostage because of the craziness. Anyway, now it gets even a little bit better, in my opinion, to a point, if you can call this better. The Biden administration last week, the EPA unveiled new regulations on coal, which is only 16% of our power plants that we have right now, and basically banning the ability to build natural gas plants. Now, the reason they're banning the ability to build natural gas plants, they don't like coal for sure, but they don't really like natural gas, which is probably one of our most abundant fuels we have in America. We have more natural gas resources than any other country on the face of the earth. So we should definitely not want to use that as the energy source just because we have a lot of it and it would be really economical. No. But the problem is they're wanting them to go ahead and enact in any new plants coming on carbon capturing. And basically carbon capturing hasn't really been perfected yet. But they want these abilities in both coal and natural gas plants to be able to do carbon capturing by 2032. So think about this a little bit, y'all. They're already, and 2032 is not far. Not far. This is so we're talking 8 years from now. We're supposed to create the technology that will allow us to be able to build new power plants. I mean, you look at Texas and just them alone, they're predicting that their power usage is going to double in that same amount of time. And we don't have the technology to really start building now. And you're not going to build these natural gas power plants overnight. It's not going to happen. So I guess we're going to keep putting windmills out there that freeze, and we're going to keep putting solar out there that, doesn't really work real well at night. So you've got about a half of a day to utilize that, and you got to have the battery space for it. So you'll need the minerals that are in Alaska or China, you pick, and we're not going to do the Alaska either. So every minute that we try to say we're going to go ahead and do this, we handcuff ourselves on the backside of it too. So I don't know who thinks this is a good thing. I don't know who thinks this is smart. None of this is that. Joe, it looks like we might have a caller maybe over on one. No, we don't. Okay, cool. I'm back to my rant, I guess I can call it or whatever. But, I mean, the one thing I can tell you is your energy prices are going to go up, and they're already up. And I've talked to Duke Power, and Duke tells me things that make sense. A lot of the problems they got, back whenever the Russians invaded Ukraine, natural gas went out the roof, and we do have a lot of natural gas powered plants. A lot of that was just poor economics and different things. I'm going to still blame on the current administration that's in there. And it allowed them to actually go back and recapture some loss. They lost because they couldn't get a rate increase in time. Lost about $1.5 billion during that period. So they're actually allowing them to go back and recapture some of that in the rate that they moved up in this last time. it's only going to get worse. And I hear Duke Power, and they're telling all of us in the state legislature, we know you really can't do anything, but if you can do anything, please do something, because this is getting really scary. It's so just stupid. I don't know the word for it. It's just crazy. It's stupid what we're doing, and it's going to keep on going. The carbon capturing right now, their best plan is they will, and it takes about 25% of the power that the power plant produces to do the carbon capturing. So even if we built a new plant, you're only going to get about 70 to 80% efficiency out of the plant, because you got to use that much energy to suck the carbon out and pump it out into the Midwest, and we're pumping it underground into different caves and caverns and stuff like that. Now, I want y'all to think about that. How practical is that to move something like carbon in a tube from the West Coast or East Coast to the Midwest to put it underground to allow the earth to dissipate it? I know that we want a clean environment. I know that we want a lot of things that are good for us, and I know we want to preserve for future generations. Natural gas will allow us to do that, and I'm not hating on coal, but natural gas is the answer for the United States of America, and we're doing everything we can to make that impossible. And we will run out of power if we don't start waking up and paying attention. Folks, please vote red, because this insanity just can't keep going on. Stay close with us here, folks. Jake Johnson's coming on. We're going to talk broadband. Can't wait to get him on the radio. Till then, hang tight.
More Taking Care of Iredell with North Carolina Representative Jeff McNeely is coming up on Representative Jeff McNeely on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
All right, back here with the second half of the show. Got Representative Jake Johnson on the line. Joe, let's see if we can bring him in. Hey, Jake, are you there? Are you there, Jake? Yeah, hello.
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
I got you now, brother. You on? All right. Got a little. There's always that little point where I hold my breath, like, oh crap! Here we got 30 minutes. We got to fill. Yeah, I got you though. All right. We got Representative Jake Johnson from up in Polk County. So, Jake, tell us. I always get people to do this. I know you've been on the show a couple different times, but tell us a little bit about who Jake Johnson is. Name a name you know. A name you know.
The name you know. That is right. I'm from out in western North Carolina. So I represent House District 113. I've got all of Polk County, a good portion of Henderson and Rutherford, and then even go up into McDowell a little bit. So got 4 great counties out here, western North Carolina. I'm about, from where you're sitting, I'm probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours west of you. But so I chair our IT committee up in Raleigh. And then I chair our oversight committee as well. So we usually have a pretty full agenda, especially this time of year when we've got a lot of things going on. And we're running up there for a short session, which I'm sure you've touched on. We expect to be in and out of there in a few months, but we've been proven wrong before, so we'll see. But we're there to do the job of the people, and we'll stay there as long as it takes us.
That's right. There's always that one thing that keeps us there forever. So hopefully that won't come up, but I got a feeling that one thing's a coming. Anyway, so it is. But hey, all right, and not to get too far off of the trail that we're on, Jake is one of the chairs on GovOps, government operations, and just always, like I love to say, I'm the chair of 2 committees, but that's my favorite, government operations. I have more fun on that committee. We bring people in and we basically go through everything with a fine-tooth comb and find out what's working and what is not working, and let them know what's working and not working, and I enjoy that. I do. I guess that's...
Well, we enjoy having you on there as much as you have me holding my breath sometimes when we call on you. It does. We do enjoy having you on there because you get down in the weeds and want to get to the bottom of things. So you're a good member on there. But no, we have a very simple mission statement on there. It's to make sure governments operate as efficient as it can be for the people of the state, and money's not getting wasted and policies being followed the way it was written by the legislature. So we've got a great group on there that does go through things and works hard for the people.
Well, that's right. That's right. I like I said. So, well, let's jump in here a little bit and talk about IT and talk about broadband, because that is, right now, that's pretty much what IT is for you in this broadband. Tell us a little bit about where we started. I think maybe give people a little bit of history and understand this didn't happen overnight. We've been working on this a while.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we've come such a long way in a very short amount of time, and it has a lot to do with the systems we've set up in North Carolina through good legislation. You look back 10 years, you were looking at investments of $150 million over 10 years. So you're thinking $15 million a year is just a drop in the bucket to what we really needed. But with being able to partner with some providers, setting up things like the GREAT grants. In the CAB programs, which we're still in the process of rolling out, and the Accelerator Fund. I mean, we've went from that type of investment to last budget cycle, passing nearly a $1 billion investment that'll be leveraged with private partners for well over $1 billion. It breaks down to about, I think it was $350 million for the GREAT grant program. That's generally provider-led and applied for. The CAB program, completing access to broadband, that's really heavily involved with the counties, them partnering with providers on projects. That was something that dating back to when I was a county commissioner, we wanted to have more involvement on guiding those projects. So that's been extremely encouraging, and that's another $450 million, and then another $100 million to partner with co-ops to be able to replace poles and get them upfitted for fiber in some of our most rural areas. So those are 3 great programs that we're going to see rolled out, hopefully by the end of this year, we will see that money out the door. Just kind of where we are with that, a lot of the counties have opted, or not a lot, a handful of the counties have opted to go ahead and award their second place great grant finisher with their CAB money. So it's still taken away from their cap that they can pull from and leverage down, but they had second place finishes in the great grant that they wanted to see rolled out quicker. So we allowed them to do that. And DIT, we've worked with them. They're the ones that actually vet through our Department of Information Technology, vets through those applications and has a scoring mechanism that they use. So we're getting into the actual CAB program now where counties are starting to partner with providers, and we hope to see those awarded soon. One of the hurdles we had, and this is just was an option of a lot of the counties, a lot of the ARPA funds that they received. This is the big packages that came down from the federal government. They opted to use that money on other projects instead of broadband, which is fine. But in the legislation, it did specify that you were supposed to hold back a little bit of that money to be able to partner on these applications. So one thing we're going to navigate during the short session is how do you reward the counties who didn't spend their money on other things, and maybe that's letting them leverage a little bit more of the funds coming down. So we've got a couple of things to fix with legislation, and then the big one is going to be the $1.5 billion coming down in BEAD funding, and we've got to do some legislative changes to be able to receive that money. We're in very active negotiations right now with the federal government, providers, our departments in Raleigh, and the legislature, and hopefully we can all come together in the next month to make sure we don't miss out on that piece of the pie.
Jake, is there any timelines on this as far as when we've got to pull this money down, or use it or lose it?
Yeah, really, the sooner the better, because what we don't want, and I don't know the exact deadlines, what we don't want is to see that money go to another state. We want to make sure we keep it here. So my ideal scenario is that now that we're gaveled back into session, we've actually got a bill that was originally an agency bill already in the Senate. So if we can get that language right, that all the providers, the federal folks, and us in the legislature and the department agree that this meets all the criteria and checks all the boxes and leaves us with a feasible way to proceed. If we could get that bill plugged in over there, get it sent over to us, that all we've got to do pretty much is give the thumbs up on it over in the House, and then we can go ahead and get that implemented so that we can start pulling those funds down. But it does become a timeline issue. When we talked about broadband, we're not the only state that wants internet. I know it's sometimes feels like we're in our own world here, but when you look at our neighbors that have a similar geography and have similar challenges with implementing, and it becomes a workforce issue, it becomes a materials issue, and just whoever can get it done first. And historically, we've been really good at that, and other states are looking at us on how to do it. But it is a timeline issue. We're not the only ones that want fast internet out here.
Well, yeah. And speaking of that, I'll tell you what. Let's track back a little bit and go back. Let's talk a little bit about where we started with the great grants, because most of that, I know the great grants actually been pulled down in my county, I think, but not all utilized. Because now, tell me if I'm wrong, and I know we're getting in the weeds on dates and stuff like that, but basically they could pull it down. Didn't really have to get started till 25, but had to be completed by 27. Is that correct, or was there an end date? I think there was an end date.
I believe it may even have been a little bit more aggressive on those to get that timeline done. And at that point, some of the issues we had in the very beginning that held things up, the Treasury, the federal Treasury, actually had a provision that delayed us about 6 months. And we understand that a lot of these providers, they're not dragging their feet. They want to get going just as bad as we do and just as bad as the people wanting to get served. But there was an issue in the very beginning about whether it was compliant the way we partner with private entities to do it. And, we kind of had to explain, we don't have a State Department that goes out and installs, that we leave that to the private sector, and we contract that out to people who do it every day.
Yeah.
And we want it done as efficient as possible. So there was a little delay on the beginning that is certainly not the fault of those applying for it and those trying to get it pulled down. So there is a chance that we may have to go back and adjust some dates. But until then, we want to make sure that everyone's pursuing this as fast and aggressive as possible. So, if those with a 2 to 3 year build out, if it can get done, we want it to get done in that amount of time.
Well, and one thing that's tricky, like here with us, and I'm sure it's in a lot of the larger counties and population-wise, it's true. I've got like 3 providers here in my district alone. I got AT&T, I got Spectrum, and I got Zurus. And it's almost, I hate to use the word comical, it's my luck, we'll say, whatever. The farthest one away from Statesville, largest city really here in the district, got into it wide open. And Zurus has just been going gangbusters up in the top part of Iredell County. And then I've got that hole in the middle, and I'm trying to get Spectrum and AT&T. And, luckily I was able to get up with some of their representatives here just in the last little bit and talk with them and kind of express that, to them. And it's hard to tell people, well, so-and-so lives 20 miles up above me. They're getting it, and where's my, it's like, dang.
Exactly, and the scoring mechanisms are so complicated with how these projects are scored that these providers, they've got a lot of criteria they have to meet.
Hey, Jake, hold that thought. We got to take a hard break. All right, folks, hang on. It's gonna be good.
Keep it right here. Taking care of Iredell with. McNeely on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
All right, back here for the last part of the show, talking broadband, Representative Jake Johnson. Jake, you still with me?
Absolutely. We're hanging in there.
All right. So we got the great grant. We got money pulled down. I was able to talk with the county, and county went ahead and went with it. So that's got things started. Like I said, we're out there, and I got my farthest away provider going wide open. I'm trying to motivate the other two. And we were talking about that. Of course, that's my luck. So everybody's hollering, why are they getting it first? But, it is. There's no rhyme or reason in this.
Well, and Jeff, we do a lot through the Department of Information Technology does a lot of our scoring, and you've got criteria that maybe you would think one provider would be strong in, and then it comes out maybe they get points for something else on another end, and then they add all those scores together. And a big part of this I want to emphasize is the mapping. You have to have accurate maps to know where these gaps are, where the speeds are, who's losing coverage when, who's reporting a certain amount of speed up and down, but it's not actually in reality that way, or maybe only at 3 a.m. or something like that. So what we've got to be able to do, and I think is really important, is make sure people know, if they reach out to me or you, that's great. We can try to relay it back. But really what the most efficient way is, if you're having trouble maybe with a speed or reliability or just consistency of speed, is reaching out to the department directly. And, the legislature, we give them, I think it was $1 million in the last budget just for maps, because you really can't run these lines until you know where your gaps are. So, it makes sense to fund that mapping up front, but people reaching out and telling them directly where the holes are in coverage, that goes a really long way, and maybe you've got some information for them on that.
Well, I got a phone number, and they're probably going to hate me over at the Department of Information Technology. But folks,
they're going to see a spike in Iredell calls. It's a statistical anomaly. They're going to see a spike.
All right, folks, if you got your pen and paper, or you can remember or whatever, this is technical assistance at Department of Information Technology, 919-754-6000. You can always remember that without writing it down. 919-754-6000. Don't know if that's the exact number we need, but that's a dadgum good start. You can start there, and they can probably put you somewhere.
And it will, and I would certainly recommend going to their website and navigating through the broadband office on their website, and just reporting that back to them, because they invite that. It's not certainly not a bothersome thing to them. They want to make sure their mapping is as good as possible, and people reaching out and telling them the reality of the coverage on the ground, that's a big deal to them. And we've got it right where I think a lot of other states have gotten it wrong, in the sense of we don't try to micromanage this through the state. And I don't think it would make sense to do it like we do a DOT or something like that. I think it's better that we're working with these providers who do this day in and day out. They've got their own sets of maps and data that they spend lots of money developing. And they work across multiple states too. So that's why it is important that we do things as quick and efficient as we can to make sure that we're getting it in North Carolina. It's not going somewhere else.
Well, yeah, I think the phone number is going to be critical for people that don't have internet, because it's going to be hard to go online and converse with them if you don't have internet. So you better call.
That's or you got to wait till 3 a.m. when nobody else is on it, and
exactly.
Or go to the McDonald's with the free Wi-Fi, and that's why I've said I do not take it lightly that when we're talking about $2.5 billion in a state budget that's normally around $30 billion. You're talking about a huge percentage we're investing.
Yeah.
But I think you'd be hard pressed to find anything else that touches every sector of the economy. Whether it's your kid going to school and being able to come home and do their homework, whether it's the grandparent that wants to do something via telehealth, or whether it's somebody looking to move to your community and start a small business, or somebody with the freedom to work from home that wants to go to a rural area and live. When you start talking about all those things and recruiting businesses, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anything that is a smarter investment for the next generation in North Carolina.
Well, I mean, you look right now. We don't have really much of a paper in the county anymore, in Statesville, my district or whatever. It's just randomly on a few days a week. So many people are getting their news and getting, alerted and told about these different things. And a lot of people say, oh, well, that's cellular. Okay, well, so many times that I'm working through the internet instead on cellular because I've got such poor cellular reception. So the whole, it's one package. It's the whole thing. Everything's tied together in this. You got to, without the broadband broadband, then you're going to struggle if you're just working off a cell signal. You're never going to get the speeds you need to download any kind of a decent sized file or whatever you're doing. So it's critical.
And I think we're working toward, right now, if you go to buy a house, and that's what I do back in the mountains working real estate, you go to buy a house, your first two questions have always been, water and sewer. Is it on a well or septic? I mean, those are your big ones. I've almost seen as big of a shift to asking, okay, what is the internet service like? I mean, it's getting close to being one of those necessary things you have to find out on the front end. That's one of the first questions people ask. I mean, I've had them, go up to houses they've loved and pulled out their phone and said, if I'm not getting signal here, there's not a good chance of me getting internet here. Let's keep on moving. We don't need to go inside. So it affects your housing markets. It has a huge pull on your housing market as well.
Well, from the pandemic going forward, I think office buildings are an endangered species to a point. They say they're filling back up slowly but surely, but I still think there'll be a large majority of the workforce that'll be working from home from now on. As long as they're productive, I think certain jobs you can surely do that. But you cannot do that probably unless you're able to get online and have the high speed access. It's one thing to get on. It's another thing to have the high speed access to be able to move the data that you got. Well, let's talk about what I consider the monkey wrench in the whole program, and that's the federal regulations that are put on to pull down the federal money from all these great Build Back Betters and whatever else kind of crazy thing that they've come up with in the last while. That's about drove us crazy at the General Assembly. You can speak a little on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing we think that they're not considering in this criteria, I think they're really trying to overregulate the pricing of it. And I think when you overregulate the pricing aspect, one, you're not taking into account that what it costs to run a line in my district may not be what it costs to run a line in your district or out on the coast or, out here, you may run it a totally different way that costs more or less. So that they've taken very little account into the actual cost the providers incur. They've actually just kind of set these rates and said, hey, you can't charge more than X. Well, that doesn't take into account a lot of things, and it actually may end up hurting the person trying to get it on the back end, that it may make some areas less appealing to even operate in. And, my big contention with kind of the Biden administration and some folks in North Carolina is let's focus on getting it there first, and then let's talk about affordability. My people may be able to go out and eat one less time a month to be able to get internet. That's a budgeting decision they can make. If you've got internet for $50 or $60 a month, but if there's not even an option to hook onto it, then we've got a big problem, or a provider willing to provide it at that cost. So I said, I think that's probably it's a very bipartisan issue that's been very refreshing to work on because 90% of the stuff we agree on with the other party. I would say if there's one discretion that we haven't necessarily agreed on, it's let's focus on getting it to these areas and then worry about subsidizing the cost. Because I said, if my people don't have it, they can't afford it. So it's not even an option right now that a lot of people have. Let's give them that option first.
Yeah, and I think we'll figure out the cost factors on the backside of subscriptions to these services and different things. I mean, you already got that pretty much right now through your cell phone if you want to add certain apps, So you're going to make decisions on whether you want the app or whether you don't. But like I said, if you don't have the access, there is no need to worry about how much an app costs. So
that's exactly right. You got to be able to have it to not be able to afford it. As that logic goes, there's budgeting decisions everybody can make inside a household that I think we need to consider. And there's already an affordable connectivity program that you can get a deduction off your bill through the federal funds. So it's not like there's no programs out there. So I think that's a big deal. And then making sure that it's cost effective for folks to serve certain areas. I mean, we know that the more densely populated it is, you're going to have just a higher percentage of customers. But when you get out in these rural areas, it becomes very expensive to run and very challenging when you don't have the density.
And see, that's kind of what I had to talk. We got about a minute here left, but that's kind of the talk I had with AT&T and Spectrum. I said, are y'all waiting as long as you can to get as many customers moved into the area or built into the area before you start? Like, no, we're not. Well, it looks that way. And so hopefully that's going to subside, because I know there's a clock ticking on them. They're going to come through. We got about 30 seconds for the last little spill on on IT. So tell us what you think. Is broadband, when's our date where we think we might be complete?
Well, I'm hoping as soon as we get back up there, we can get that bill pushed through. And, if we've got a 3 to 5 year build out on that, once those funds get awarded to providers, we're really hoping that this closes a huge portion of the gap. I mean, when you're talking about that amount of money, and then I think we go in and start talking about, okay, how do we make the coverage more consistent? Now that everyone, within range has gotten it, how do we work on that middle mile? How do we do some creative things to get to the people, out in very remote areas who, they've been on family land for 100 years. They don't want to move, but we want to make sure they have the equal access that we do. How do we work on those more ingenuitive solutions to get it out into those really high-cost areas, maybe even beyond what we would normally think of as the last mile,
and
then shoring up that middle mile? Yeah.
We got to go. We'll talk more.
Hey, absolutely.
All right. See you, brother.
Brother, thanks for having me on. We'll see you back in Raleigh. We appreciate you.
Dear Lord, be with us. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. All right, folks, until next week, take care.
You've been listening to North Carolina Representative Jeff McNeely. Join Jeff again next Monday morning at 11:05 for Taking Care of Iredell on News Talk WSIC.